You can see by now that there are many models of reflective practice, and really what we should also do is look at some criticisms of reflective practice. And perhaps the most significant figure to look at in terms of a critique of reflective practice is Stephen Brookfield. He actually identifies that for the reflective practitioner, there can be a significant number of personal risks involved, both in terms of their confidence and also in terms of reflecting critically on their role. Ash and Moore actually say that there are certain preconceived ideas, preconceived understandings about reflective practice, which can interfere and, in a way, deconstruct the actual process. Whatever criticisms we look at, they tend to fall into four categories, and we can see the categories relate to the ethical considerations around reflective practice, as well as professional considerations. There are, of course, the considerations around teaching, the pedagogic considerations. And of course, there is the conceptualization of reflective practice itself. In terms of the ethical dilemmas associated with critical practice, these are very much focused on the teacher's interaction with the students and issues around things like confidentiality and privacy, and about the professional relationship that the teacher has with the students. There is therefore a potential risk here in terms of the teacher reflecting on what is happening, especially if the teacher is keeping a diary or some sort of log about incidents in the classroom. If somebody else was to have access to this log, then there would be an issue of confidentiality. In terms of the ethical considerations, and Stephen Brookfield talks about this particularly, that there can be issues for the teacher in terms of their own feelings, which are developing from the process of reflection, especially where the idea of reflection is seen as quite negative. Words like critical, in terms of critical reflection, are not about being negative, but if the teacher perceives them as being negative, they can actually create some unwelcome feelings and some lack of confidence. And this is perhaps the strongest argument from the ethical perspective against reflective practice. In terms of professional concerns for reflective practice, very often reflective practice is seen as something which just needs to be done, and therefore in a way it can become quite uncritical. It becomes a mechanistic process that the teacher, especially a new teacher, go through because they have to, they're told to, as part of their program of learning. And in this regard, therefore, the professional concerns are very much about the teacher not really engaging with the process of reflection critically enough. It becomes quite a superficial activity. Where this happens, then the actual quality of the reflection goes down, and therefore the value of actually reflecting is made redundant. And again, this can be seen as quite a powerful argument against reflective practice process. At the level of the individual teacher, of course, there are responsibilities about, fostering good practice. And where the teacher is not engaging with this critically enough, then it does raise questions about the quality that they're bringing to the teaching-learning transaction. And there are two key concerns here. One is about the teacher's readiness to actually engage with reflection. And certainly the key concern, this professional concern, is aimed at new teachers who are just entering the profession. because the idea is that they are simply not experienced enough to be able to reflect on practice. They are not developmentally ready to reflect. And really, for good reflection to be transformative, to change teaching, it does need a level of criticality from the teacher, an awareness of themselves, an awareness of theories about teaching and learning, synthesized together in order for reflection to take place. The pedagogic concerns come into play here. The expert teacher, the experienced practitioner, is somebody who can engage with reflective practice very easily. The new teacher, somebody just starting, reflective practice is actually quite a difficult thing to do, and therefore they are not actually going through the process of reflection accurately or stringently enough. And especially where reflective practice is a compulsory part of training courses. For new teachers, the pedagogic concern is very clearly there. Asking new teachers to reflect as part of their learning is perhaps a very superficial thing to do. So therefore, reflection for the new teacher would actually be quite incomplete and could actually be damaging in terms of their development as a teacher and the learning that they're acquiring from the process of teaching. The conceptual concerns are very much related to the idea of trying to deconstruct teaching to the point where it is easy to categorize it into very simple categories. And the critique is based on the idea that teaching has some very profound philosophical and disciplinary underpinnings which are not so easy to break into simple categories. And this particular concern leads to the idea of how reflexive the process of reflective practice really is. Since teaching does require a very deep understanding of self in relation to teaching and relation to certain philosophies, the level of reflexivity, therefore, needs to be deep. And if the teacher actually can't engage with that level of reflexivity, then reflective practice becomes superficial again. So the issues here tend to lack an understanding of the complexity of reflective practice, and then the teacher is not able to problematize their own teaching sufficiently in order for reflective practice to be something which is useful and for the teacher to learn from. So you can see the ethical and the pedagogic and the conceptual and the professional concerns come together to give us something to think about in terms of all these different models, because we should not just simply see that reflective practice is entirely a good thing, but we should be critical of the process itself. We should not only think about undertaking reflective practice, but we should be concerned about how we are undertaking that reflective practice. And as practitioners, how are we applying this tool that we have in order to improve our teaching?